Hello, everyone. Good evening, Boston. This is WCB. You're listening to the underground sound of Boston radio. Welcome to the second episode of the FrameCast. Introducing Marcus Joseph, the creator of the Three Step Program, an exciting new TV show. It's an original independent student production. Thank you for coming here, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks for me being here. You guys reached out to me out of nowhere. I was like, oh, sure. I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. I'd like to be interviewed about this. So that's why I'm here now.
Yeah. So, how are you feeling right now, man? It was really cold outside, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that wind is biting. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Valentine's Day is not showing us any love, especially not this Boston weather.
Yeah, no, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of ironic though. This is like Chicago's considered the windy city, but I'm pretty sure Boston's considered to be more windy, if not windier.
Oh yeah, tell
Well,
me
yeah,
about
just
it.
like overall, like just as windy. I mean.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started into film and your journey so far in Emerson.
Yeah. Already when we came to when it mean to sorry, when it
So,
means to like
yeah.
to come to Emerson. It's been an interesting experience. Like I was born and raised here, like in Randolph, Massachusetts, like about 40 minutes south of Boston. Technically, it is the Boston area, but it's not the metropolitan area of Boston. When I was 13, I moved to Miami. Originally though, overall, film was not something I really wanted to get into. I was originally mostly a writer, mostly in the narrative sense. I like to do poetry and like write like narrative like stories, like short fictions, flash fictions, and even like novels. But I really became infatuated with screenwriting, and then from that I wanted to really try directing, which is why I started Three Step Program.
Wow, that was really cool. So I'm curious about what other projects have you been involved in ever since coming to Emerson?
Yeah, when it comes to kind of the production side of things, I've mostly really ever been like a script supervisor for a few other independent projects. Briefly for Modus Operandi, for And I Love Her, Modus Operandi was directed by Juana Serrano. And I Love Her was directed by, shout out my roommate Otto Pressler. And I was a writer for a few like other like short films. Even for my first year as a freshman, I helped write Love Is Phony, directed by Shadrach Akoy, and Interview with this Consultant under the same director as well. So I've been around. Also, actually more recently, besides Three Step Program, I helped write Cordio, directed by Graham White as well. So I've really liked like writing in general. I mean, most of those like ideas like I kind of came on like late for the projects, but I was really able to like kind of like put in my own like voice for it as well. I'm always gonna be thankful for those guys for like helping me, for basically putting me on at that point, because I feel like writing as a VMA is like having that as your forte. It isn't only ambitious; it's very difficult as well, because there's so many things you can do with other productions. Like there's so many other like things you can fill, but being a writer is a very singular thing.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm curious, so a lot of the projects you mainly worked on, were they mainly short films?
Yeah, they were mainly short films. Modus Operandi specifically actually is a really ambitious project, because it's basically feature length, and like seeing like Juana's work and seeing all the actors as well, like it was very impressive. It was very impressive.
Yeah, tackling a TV show, I imagine, is also pretty ambitious. You have this very long arc, multiple episodes, and so I'm curious. What made you want to endeavor to make this a show as opposed to a standalone film?
I've really become infatuated with like long form storytelling, and sometimes movies kind of can't do as much. It's besides like having like a franchise, and franchises aren't relatively that good, especially at this time in like the movie industry. I've really become infatuated with like watching TV shows that you see these characters develop over years, if not even really basically decades. Some of my favorite TV shows are like Mr. Robot, created by Sam Esmail, Sopranos, The Wire, starting Fargo. I'm starting True Detective. Like I just really been even Mindhunter and David Fincher directed a lot of those episodes. House of Cards. I really even Maniac. Maniac is actually the one of the main what you call it, inspirations for Three Step Program as well. And what I've really found with those TV shows is that I think overall I do like the kind of like grandiosity that movies kind of have. Like when like there's nothing else that you can kind of replicate by suspending yourself in a theater with other random people that you don't know. You may have like what popcorn or first a few snacks, but overall though, like TV shows, I just love long form storytelling, especially like the characterization that can be stretched for across seasons. I'm not gonna have multiple seasons, more of a limited series, but doing that within an extensive period of time across like I said, extensive period of time means a lot to me as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. What would you say are some of the shows that you're currently obsessed with and can't stop watching? I mean, we always have those shows. Like for me personally, I would have to say that it's The Bear. Like, yeah, there's just something about like the character's internal ambition too. I feel like that's something that we all can relate to. This drive and ambition. So.
Yeah, the Bear is it's a great TV show. I love the cast. John Bernthal's one of my favorite actors. Even though he's kind of like more of has like a guest role in a TV show.
Yeah.
Like that entire everybody on that cast has acted like rent was due. I don't know if I can swear on here, but
I mean, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I wish we could.
Okay. Well, I'll pardon
yeah.
my French, but yeah, like everyone acted like rent was due on that TV show. And the characterization, just such a claustrophobic space, and then even in a space that isn't really that healthy as a workplace, like a kitchen. I know friends that are like line cooks. I'm telling you, like the hospitality industry, especially for that part, it's never healthy.
Oh yeah.
And then seeing that is just like, oof, damn.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I know, like especially like during the first season, I noticed that like, you know, you really get the intensity of it whenever Carmi. You notice this, like Carmi, like whenever things are getting intense, Carmi's always getting cuts, and I like that as a writing choice too because it shows that like. You know,
there's some bruise to it. Yeah,
this ambition is hurting him too.
Yeah,
he's putting effort into it, but it's also something that's taking a toll on him mentally.
Yeah, and it's just like how the arguments go. They feel so real. These characters don't speak perfectly. They have their own faults. Like Richie's one of those characters to where even when people like hated him, I still kind of liked him as a character because I can kind of get it. He kind of encapsulated that point of like, it's like that guy. You ever see like those like stereotypical like. There's like those old dudes, and like we have like those cop TV shows, like I'm just like a few days away from retirement, or like it's like just one more. Richie's a character always say like one more week of this stuff, and then I'm done.
Pretty much, he's always on the edge. He's always busting Carmi's balls. So we can say that. I can say that. Okay. Yeah.
At least we can say balls. Yeah, I'm like okay.
Yeah, at least we can say that.
Yeah. Well, the TV shows I've really like kind of been enjoying though. I mean. I haven't really watched too much recently, but I just started True Detective, and I really love that TV show. Like it's just how it just is. It's just I don't even know how to describe it. Like they just like I don't know. I didn't really finish the first episode, but I was really like excited with it. I love like Matthew McConaughey as an actor and Woody Harrelson as well.
Oh yeah.
I just hope to see where it goes.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think like the third season has Mahershala Ali. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, very underrated.
Yeah, dude, Mahershala Ali is so amazing. It's a shame that Marvel hasn't like utilized that. They've been like stalling on this Blade movie forever.
Yeah, I mean, if it never happens, I'm not even gonna be like too sad about it, because I feel like Wesley Snipes has already done what he's done.
Yeah,
like it's a good franchise, but it's just like
dude, yeah. I mean, like I was watching this trailer for this movie that Ryan Coogler was doing, Sinners, and I thought, oh my God, Marvel, that's the perfect Blade movie. That's a Blade movie right there.
Yeah.
Vampires in the South. Oh my God, it looks really cool. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But more on the 3-step program. I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit about what it's about. I read like the log line, but I was wondering if you could go a little bit deeper into the more general basis of the story.
Yeah, of course. What I really liked about the TV show, like how they really were in the first episode, I feel like everybody's kind of a main character in their own right. But overall, to kind of speak on what it's about well, not only just the boxer like Malcolm, who's like drug addicted, but also I really introduced another character to that show as well, named Penelope, who's a intern at a attorney's office. About how like kind of two different people with uniquely different backgrounds, they kind of enter this like mysterious, like unregulated, like dark program, like. I almost call like a CIA like black site or like MK Ultra in a certain kind of way, where like they're kind of put through like extensive like measures to kind of cure them of their addiction. And addiction is it's very hard to kind of write about it to a certain extent. There's so many different facets you can go with it, but as a person who's kind of seen friends and family go through it, what I found even in people across just not even only identities or orientations like that, but when it comes to kind of even classes, even whether you're rich or poor, or like kind of in between, no matter what, addiction is always seen as your fault, as it's your fault. Like especially how America has had its like complicated relationship with like certain peoples that have been at the mercy of like drug addled like
Yeah.
communities, specifically like the 90s and the 80s. America kind of takes these people, not only makes caricatures of them, they think it's their fault. They don't treat addiction as a disease. They treat it as just another vice that's just along with crime. And although there, of course, there's a correlation there, I really wanted to write this series because I just found that to be really fascinating, and I feel like writing for me isn't only things that I'm really infatuated with or kind of like solving a puzzle. I really started to enjoy editing. It's my kind of way of screaming into the world, and like kind of what I overall wanted to kind of describe in my first episode is that like it's more than that. I think overall things have become a little bit more progressive, especially like this community, the community that's kind of here at Emerson of we can have a nuance to that. But I feel like addiction isn't really a topic that's discussed a lot
Yeah.
at all, really.
Especially because like there's so much. Yeah, it's like you said. There's just so much of a blame game around it, and and it's complicated because on one hand, yes, like we should hold like people responsible, but on the other hand, like if you continue to blame them, that also feeds into the cycle, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
if you demonize them and tell people that, oh, you're just a criminal, they're gonna on some level they're gonna believe that,
Yeah, like
internalize
it's
that.
the kind of similar thing with prisons. If you kind of keep somebody in secluded background, you tell them they're not going to be anything, they're not going to be anything. I went to the Emerson Prison Initiative where they talked about like I spoke to it was like more of like a seminar thing where like, these incarcerated peoples who joined the Emerson Prison Initiative got educated through the program while still in prison and are out now. And the guy really struck on me. He didn't talk about um addiction, of course, but I think there's a large correlation between incarceration and drug use, but how like it's overall seen and like shunned upon, and recidivism rates, which refers to like former convicts like exiting like jail and then entering back in. It's high when they don't have education, but it's extremely low when they don't. Recidivism rates are 50%, like as the rates of like a convict and like former incarcerated person going back into prison. It's 50% when they don't have education, but it's like 2% if they do. I think the same thing can kind of be said about drug addiction if you kind of bolster people and tell them that they're more than their vices. And I really though I think another key thing that I have to really worry about when talking about this, I do think pain is a very infatuating thing to certain audiences. I mean, and it's kind of hard for me to kind of write something that feels like it comes from me, but I don't want people to like kind of look at this series to see like another story like that's like by like a black person, see like kind of their black plight. I mean, I didn't grow up like too well off when I moved to Miami. I was like homeless for my first year there, and then I kind of me and my mom were able to like work and then kind of get to where we are now. But it's hard to kind of I'm really thinking that like say this. I don't know even really how I'm gonna fully put this into circuits as well. I'm gonna pitch this to kind of like other things as well, but I'm really kind of scared on the other point. I know I'm kind of like ranting, but I'm really scared about like how my art is overall gonna be seen. Is it gonna be seen as like a specific story that's black, or just gonna be like kind of just me? And those things aren't mutually exclusive as well. I think within like white media, there's kind of an infatuation with the black pain, but I'm just trying like not to kind of lean into that too much.
Yeah, because like this is gonna sound pretty weird, but I saw this really funny video about how like oftentimes in popular culture, like the most fetishized stories are, uh, and whenever they are about people of color, they're usually about them suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And when it got me, and what you said about black pain, it got me to really think about how how it is important to tell these stories, but at the same time to not feed into the narrative. And I thought that what you brought up was so interesting about the Emerson prison program, and the fact that there are these programs out there to provide people with opportunity. But I'm curious about like what your experience like when you visited uh, them. Like, how is gaining access to those programs like for them? generally? Is it easy? Is it difficult?
Well, for them, actually, it was like extremely difficult for them because out of all of those like people that were incarcerated, I think that's like it went out. The application went out to 200 people. I think only they mentioned like 20 people got in, and that's like already exclusive as well. Like, and but they talked about over about how like talking. Actually, also first off, I actually went there for a class. I didn't like have to go there, but I'm so actually so glad I went. It kind of gave me like a lot of like inspiration and kind of like it was also got like heartfelt towards the end because one of the I think his name was Kevin, one of the guys in the prison Emerson Prison Initiative, he mentioned that it kind of made them feel like people, and that kind of I got a little bit like teary eyed because I can understand where he's coming from. Like I've had like kind of friends and like family who's kind of been incarcerated, and they, even then when they come back, they never really come back the same, and they always kind of have this kind of like walk around them to where like you can tell something happened to them, and they aren't the same person anymore. They kind of lose some of their light, or in certain ways, they just don't feel. They still feel trapped.
Yeah, you're right.
Like the cage
often,
lasts a long time even after they exited.
Yeah,
So.
people don't often think about that, like uh, about what people do after they get out. You know, people are like that's what kind of like frustrates me about our culture so much. We're very much a punishment-based society rather than a forgiveness-based society, and I think that that definitely has its consequences. But I think we can, I think it's important with shows and movies like these to raise awareness about it. I'm curious, what are some major themes or messages that you hope people get out of it, and what are some things you hope to avoid, like with your first episode?
I think the major theme even kind of comes across between like multiple characters, even the characters that Proctor's one of the main characters in the show as well, who's an older man compared to like Malcolm and Penelope who are in their 20s, who's very smart at what he does. He's like this kind of like this doctor psychiatrist and like also like psychotherapist as well, who kind of created a 3-step program to kind of rid people of their addiction, but not by inherently through like kind of therapy and realizing that they can be fixed or like talking to these people, more so by kind of having their subconscious like look back at them or kind of like using more invasive like mental procedures, almost like an MK Ultra kind of deal to kind of cure addiction. And I mean, I don't want to kind of, I mean, I can kind of spoil it. The reason why he does so, kind of recreate a program because somebody, like a brother of his, died of addiction, and he never understood like why he did what he did. He almost even saw it as a suicide as well. And I think a lot of people view that even certain cases as well. Not even between more famous people that die, but in terms of like, oh, this person gave up on life. They kind of like gave into their addiction as well. That's kind of Proctor's one of my favorite characters in the TV show because he just doesn't get it, and I think Proctor is a character that can kind of like that we can kind of understand. Well, we get to know him more throughout the series that you kind of understand like why he's doing it, but it's kind of like something like he's like you understand like he understands like this is wrong, but the way he's going about it is all wrong as well.
Yeah, you're right, and
I
I
hope
think
that answered your question well.
yeah, and that it's that theme of like intergenerational trauma in a sense. He's and yeah, I think that's really cool. I think that's something that definitely separates in a lot of ways from a lot of other stories. And what I find is that they tend to be very one-dimensional, where they focus on oh, just a bad guy that you have to defeat, and boom, every single issue that the character has prior to solve. No, with Proctor, you have something very interesting. You have a characters who, yeah, is complicated, but has internalized their trauma in a way that's causing harm, active harm.
To the people, to himself, to
And
his
yeah,
loved ones, and even to like the kind of even to Penelope and Malcolm, who are the kind of like I guess the test subjects to the kind of program that he's trying to do as well. One of even the main antagonists is a person who's like a former patient of Proctor, but things like he changed her mind like in a literal and figurative way, but didn't do so right. So like that kind of becomes another problem as well. I do kind of like feel like that it's an allegory. What I'm kind of going for is an allegory of like what happens when the ethics of like healthcare or like just kind of certain medical procedures are kind of just waned on. So
yeah,
that's a whole other thing as well. But I think the other thing, well, actually, we're really trying to hopefully avoid is, of course, the cliches within certain characters. But even then, though, not all characters have been. Some characters have been really easier to write than others. Even in my own, like, I even have my own biases about like when certain people kind of go through that kind of like tunnel of drug addiction. Specifically with Penelope. Penelope's a character who, on paper, seemingly has a good life. She's a young intern at a attorney's office. She's getting paid for it. She has her own apartment at the age of like 20. But she kind of not only has her own addictions, she's kind of surrounded by people with that. And even like with the extended research that I've done, actually from like the writers who like helped me like kind of sat down with the project and be like, Marcus, you should fix this, that, and the third. A notion that I kind of discovered is that even like did research on is that when you are even if a partner of yours goes through addiction, you kind of get sick with them. Of course, like not inherently. Even if the person you don't even have to really use, like, but you kind of get sick with them, and that kind of really intrigued me, and I wanted to focus on Penelope's character for that as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's cool of you to have this balance. You have like one character who is from not so good background, one who is, and you focus on the ways in which addiction affects both classes.
Yeah, like I was even thinking about like not adding Penelope as a character at all. I initially thought of Malcolm. Like I boxed myself in Miami. I've seen the kind of kids who are at risk, who like kind of didn't, who needed boxing way more than I did. I mean, I wasn't doing the best, but who needed boxing way more than I did, and I was like, that became a character that was way easier for me to write.